Okay, that's the Indy 500. While we were away, obviously, Indy 500. Alex Palou, unbelievable, bold, brazen move right at the end with about 15 laps to go. Palou wins the Indy 500. Palou has now won 4 races this season. You know, we talked about Robert Schwartzman, the pole sitter, the young driver from Formula One who had never raced on an oval and went 232 miles and qualified for the pole. He never got through the first corner with the lead. He lost the lead. It was so fast. He lost the lead going into the first turn, and he never recovered. And all of a sudden, he went from 1 to 4. He got shuffled back. The speed just blew him away. He couldn't handle it. And then he almost caused a pile of wrecks on the first pit stops. And then on the second pit stop, way too hot coming down the lane into his own pit box, he hit 2 of his pit crew members. He was so out of control. The event was way too big. And this was the kid that was on the pole, Robert Schwartzman. It was a weird day. I mean, there was a crash on the warm-up lap before they dropped the green flag. Scott McLaughlin got loose on cold pavement, hit the wall, wrecked his car. First lap, once they dropped the green flag, Marco Andretti got squirrely. He hit the wall. He was done. He was out of the race. There were 3 fires in the pits. In modern-day racing, you don't see that. Ryan Hunter-Reay had to get out of his car really quick. There was all kinds of fire problems with cars this year. So, I mean, it was a strange Indy 500. But Alex Palou is he's in a different world right now in terms of being an elite driver on the IndyCar circuit. Second topic on the table. What is that one?
Paris Saint-Germain.
Oh, soccer. I'm sorry. I got so many notes here. Champions League. It's over. You know, the top teams in each league play in a separate tournament called the Champions League. And Paris Saint-Germain won the Champions League with a record 5-0 win over Inter Milan of Italy. Broke a record that was set back for the worst beating in a championship match. They went back to 1956. Paris Saint-Germain, just a tremendous side. So they wind up winning there. SDFC. There's good news that they're winning. There's bad news that they lost Chuky Lozano again. Re-injured his hamstring. He's out indefinitely. Third piece of news involving SDFC is 7 of their players have been recalled by their international teams and have been taken off the SDFC roster to go play for their country in the different CONCACAF tournaments, the Gold Cups, things of that nature. So they're going to be a little bit shorthanded next couple of weeks, in addition to losing Lozano. And the third one has to do with the whole situation with the fans. They went through a real bad situation in the start of the season with homophobic slurs. They put extra security there. They just came through a really bad experience a weekend ago. LA Galaxy fans fought with SDFC fans in the upper deck at Snapdragon. The fights went down to the concourse and continued. They've expelled 33 season ticket holders, banned them from going to MLS games or SDFC games. They got a real tough situation right now with SDFC fan support and their reaction to the visiting fans. Only way to solve it is increase security. Second way is, and they won't like me saying this, stop selling 24-ounce beer cans to every soccer fan to get liquored up before the game even starts. And the third thing is do what they did in England. If you got fan control problems, you partition off. This sounds terrible to say. You partition off the end zone seats and you put up barbed wire, because they did it in Belgium and they did it in England where the hooligans were running rampant. You put up barbed wire and you want to take all the felons who root for LA Galaxy, you put them in the end zone seats with security and barbed wire. And I'll guarantee you that will stop all the fan violence, because what happened in the aftermath of the SDFC win in the 95th minute against Galaxy was really, really ugly and scary. People could have gotten thrown off the upper deck down on the lower concourse because of the fights. That's the only way they're going to solve this situation. Next one, LAFC. Stevie Cherundolo's club in MLS, they just won playoff game to qualify to go to the Club World Cup. That's a new tournament that's starting this summer, next month. It's champions of each league around the world, 32-team tournament. It's called the Club World Cup. LAFC posted a victory for Steve Cherundolo, who's from down here. He is the longtime coach of LAFC. He's had a great career. He has gotten his team into the championship round. The cool thing is they earn $9.8 million bonus by going to that tournament. So this is great for LAFC to be one of the MLS representatives in the Club World Cup. So that was tremendously impressive. Team USA Soccer. This is kind of interesting here. They're really struggling with health. And Alexi Lawless from Team USA just ripped the daylights out of the new coach of the U.S. men's soccer program. We had talked a couple weeks ago about Christian Pulisic, 7 other players not being on the summer roster for Gold Cup, for the Copa Gold Cup tournament because of injuries, guys needing downtime to rest and rehab, and Mauricio Pochettino excusing Pulisic. Alexi Lawless just killed him on network TV, saying, we have the World Cup coming to our country. This is our chance, our one and only chance to make U.S. soccer elite. And you're giving these guys all this time off. And this comes on the heels of the former head coach of Team USA criticizing Pochettino also for the exact same set of circumstances. So there's a culture here that Alexi Lawless thinks it needs to be built, and you can only build it by having these guys for the extended practice times and actually playing in the Gold Cup and the CONCACAF tournaments together. And because of the injuries to Pulisic and Gio Reyna and a whole bunch of guys, they're not playing at all. ESPN. Do you recall early in the day when ESPN first started, they did interview programs, and we had never ever seen anything like that on TV before. Remember the round table, ESPN Writers Roundtable?
Yeah.
The Bob Ryans of the world. It was really cool.
The reporters.
The reporters.
Yeah. It was, they filmed that in Times Square.
Right. So anyhow, they started that, and then of course they started Around the Horn.
Right.
Where they brought sports writers on from every city, and they became guests on a regular basis. Well, ESPN's Around the Horn ran 23 years, over 4,900 episodes. So this podcast got a lot of work to do to catch them. But they were on for 23 years, and they've just ended their long run. And I thought back to that, and I totally, you watch so much TV, and there's so much to cover, and I write and we talk about it. You forget the early stages of what ESPN was. And I thought to myself one night, I'm sitting there drinking a beer, and I said, God, I remember the Reporters Roundtable. How cool that was. The first time I'd ever seen it. It was the first time I met Chris Mortensen, the late great NFL reporter, and all those guys were on. I said, that was cool, the reporters and Bob Ryan. And then the Roundtable. We'd never, ever seen that discussion before. Guys in 4 different cities arguing, the guy from Denver, Woody Page, arguing with Bill Plaschke of the LA Times and yelling at some guy from New York. So that was kind of cool. So 23-year run. ESPN's really different now, a.k.a. Stephen Smith yelling at everybody. But, you think back, they were pioneers. They did something that had never been done before on TV. So, John, I was long-winded. There's an awful lot there to talk about. Go ahead. Go from green flags, black flags, Indy 500 to all things soccer.
Okay, so the Indy 500, there were so many wrecks in the beginning of that. And then there was the rain and everything else. But the guy, what was the driver's name that in the warm-up lap was just kind of wiggling his tires to kind of heat him up?
Scott McLaughlin, defending champion, wrecked his car.
Exactly. And so he felt horrible. And I was just feeling the pain with that guy. I mean, he didn't even get to the start of the race.
No, exactly. And he had crashed in warm-ups during the week or in practice laps during the week. The end result was there was cloud cover in Indy. So the track was not hot, which was great because that means you're going to get super speeds. But the problem is you got cold tires on a cool down track. You got to heat those tires up. And that's why those guys are doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost control. And boom, he hit both walls in his car. His day was done. He had not even started. And then the exact same thing happened on the actual green lab first lap to Marco Andretti. He's running on cold tires, trying to get up to speed. He wiggled, lost. Next thing you know, he's in the wall. And like I said, I've never seen so many accidents in the pits. I mean, there were so many scripts in the pits, and then we had 3 pit fires, which you never, ever want to see, and you haven't seen in a long period of time. The safety precautions are phenomenal, but see Ryan Hunter's Ray in a cockpit just kind of go up in flames, and man, they got him out of there lickety-split, but it was a bizarre Indy 500, and then Alex Palou just kind of took control of it, dart dash, take the green flag, and go.
You know who's a fun driver to focus on sometimes is that Ferrucci kid.
Yeah.
And he's got that red, white, and blue stars and stripes car.
Santino.
Yeah, and he's young and he's got a personality. And he came in second place, I think, in the Detroit race over the weekend. So, yeah, the Indy 500 was terrific. Paris Saint-Germain, you said they beat Milan, but isn't that Pulisic's team?
No. Pulisic is AC Milan. This is Inter Milan.
Oh, okay. But they probably play in the same league,
yes,
I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay. Then the SDFC thing, first of all, what a great May they had. And they're in second place in the West. I mean, for an expansion team, this is awesome.
Yep.
Now, yeah, the Chuky Lozano thing, hopefully he comes back soon. But the bad guys in this whole thing are the LA fans, because they stole like a Bob Marley flag from the San Diego FC fans, and then they brought it to the game and hung it upside down. And so
that's the ultimate insult.
Well, yeah, they were just provoking the San Diego fans. So don't put, imagine putting a barbed wire Snapdragon Stadium. I mean, it's supposed to be family friendly. You're going to have like a prison in the end zone or something.
That's how they stopped it. I mean, there was an incident in Belgium. And this was an era in the 80s where rioting was happening everywhere in England, everywhere in France and Germany. And what happened was they took one of the stadiums in Brussels and they put barbed wire up, and they put the visiting fans who had tickets to sit in the end zone seats, flanked by security, and barbed wire. And that stopped it. Now, like I said, you're probably not going to agree with me, but they got to put a lid on this.
Well, I think the one thing they can do that makes sense to me is you have to penalize the team. They got to take a loss or something like that, or they lose a point in the standings, because so
you're going to fine LA Galaxy $1 million, but LA Galaxy can't control their fans.
No, you can't. But the fans don't want to lose more than anything. So that's the way you can get leverage, and then the fans can maybe kind of self-police it. But the hooligans here, the bad guys, are the was it LAFC or the Galaxy?
Galaxy.
It was Galaxy. So that's the problem there. But I'm thrilled about San Diego FC. The Team USA thing, I buy in on that. They should have Pulisic and those guys playing. I just remember the 94 World Cup here in America, and that's when Alexi Lawless had the big hair. He was a big fullback then. It put American soccer, it made it real. Yep. Okay. And we knew that was the early stages. I remember they had this vision. Oh, we'll go to the quarterfinals in 98. We'll go to the semis in 02, and then we'll make the finals in 06. And that didn't work. But USA soccer is at a completely different level now. And wouldn't it be great if they made a run? And then really Mexico and Canada are host nations too.
It's a tough call, but this is all the end result of FIFA. FIFA's got all these extra things they want these clubs to play. These players have no downtime. This Club World Cup tournament that starts in June and goes into July, those players have to play if their club has been chosen to be part of the, quote, World Cup. I mean, when do these guys have time to rest? That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every time Pulisic has played, I think the number is 35,000 minutes this season. I mean, it's a lot of wear and tear. And we're not even to the World Cup.
So. And then finally, I just want to comment on ESPN. Now, first of all, you should have been on the sports reporters. I mean, or not support. Well, that would be great if you were on that, but at least around the horn.
Well, but they were doing national columnists. It was more newspaper driven, which was kind of cool because I'd never seen those guys on TV before, and I interviewed a whole bunch of those guys. But they'd have Mike Lupica and the Woody Page, and then in and out different guys from the LA Times, and they get guys from San Francisco, guys from Dallas. It was really kind of cool. And again, it was novels. First guys through the wall, first time ever to do it. And that's really neat.
Well, it was like Meet the Press,
Yeah.
but for sports.
Yes.
And I remember I was in Times Square and went into the ESPN bar and restaurant, and the studio was right there. Like it was up right by a stairwell. There's a big glass wall, and you see the 4 chairs for the sports reporters. And I was like, oh man, this is where they do it right here. And so, yeah, ESPN has been so innovative that it is easy to take granted for what they've done.
Well, you forget there's so much noise out there now. You forget how unique the initial group of programs really was. I mean, I remember ESPN's first NFL draft coverage.
That's crazy.
On a Tuesday. There were 2 guys there. There's Bob Lee and Paul Zimmerman from Sports Illustrated, and they were reading out of Paul's book, and that was it. There weren't graphics, there weren't videos, there weren't boards, there weren't live shots into somebody's war room. You know, now it's a monstrously big production. Back in the day, it was almost like black and white TV.
Well, it was more like a fantasy football draft with
Yeah.
a bunch of guys sitting around naming names and got a whiteboard or a chalkboard to write it down.
Kind of different than Stephen A. Smith yelling at somebody every hour of every minute of every day, or Chris Russo doing whatever the Mad Dog does.
Exactly.
Okay, all things we have covered, topics on the table.